Hello everyone and welcome to another crazy game from the Grand Chester. It's a game from the penultimate round of the Blitz section, Magnus Carlsen versus Vishwanathan Anand. Like I said, really a crazy game with chances on both sides. So without further ado, let's just check out the game. And like we said, after we're gonna check out the standings and who won some rating, who lost some rating, and whatnot. So, Magnus with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6 by Anand, knight to f3, and d5 now. And here, bishop to f4. Magnus goes for the London system. We have e6, preparing to develop the dark square bishop, e3, and bishop to d6. And here, just knight b to d2. It's often in the London system that you will not go bishop to g3. You don't care about doubling your f-pawn because you want the e5 square. So bishop captures with e captures like Ding had against Magnus in the previous game. And well, you saw how that went. Queen to d6 attacking the f4 pawn, and now g3. Defends while preparing to fianchetto to the light square bishop. We have b6, Anand does the same, and c3. And here we have castles. We have bishop to d3 and now bishop to a6. Bishop captures on a6, we have knight captures on a6 and queen to e2, going after the knight here. Knight to b8, and here is a very interesting moment because Anand already had his position in last year in Leuven, where a4 was played. He had it against Nakamura, and Nakamura played a4 in this position. Anand won that game, and it's hard to say if Magnus knows this game or not, but Magnus deviates here with knight to e5. It's a different move than the one Nakamura played, and it is a new move in the position. And also, it is the strongest move recommended by the engine. So it's hard to say if Magnus knows the game Anand versus Nakamura, but well, Magnus did show in an interview we checked out by Shagar Shah a few videos ago that he knows a lot of Anand's games by heart. So knight to e5, we have c5 by Anand, striking in the center, and now knight d to f3. This knight takes its place. Knight to e4 now, with strong control of e5, you also have a hole on e4, so Anand uses it for his knight. We have castles by Magnus, and now f6. Again, this is one of the positions where it's okay to push f6. We have knight to g4, and you don't have to worry about losing your knight since you still have the e3 square to go to. So here, Anand continues development, knight to c6. D captures on c5, b captures, and rook a to d1. Now, lining up the rook with the queen, preparing to push c4. We have f5 by Anand, bringing the knight back to e5, and now rook a to b8. Putting pressure on the b2 pawn if the queen moves. We have c4 by Magnus, and now you could go for d4. It's definitely possible, creates a passed pawn, but then you get knight captures, queen captures, and this guy comes to e5, and well, it's a bit of a trade-off. Sure, it's possible for black, but Anand waits with the pushing of the d pawn. He goes knight captures on e5 first, knight captures on e5, and now rook f to d8. We have rook f to e1 by Magnus, and queen to a6 now. Saying, okay, if you capture, we can trade queens, but also I'm just attacking your a2 pawn. So here, Magnus first goes f3, kicks away the knight, knight to f6, and now just b3, defends both c4 and a2. We have rook b to c8 now, and now rook to c1. If the position opens up, you want your rook opposing your opponent's rook. And now Anand pushes d4 and creates a very strong passed d pawn. Knight to d3 now by Magnus, and rook to d6 now. As the e6 pawn is under attack, you do have to defend it. We have rook to c2, now adding another defender to the a2 pawn. Now you can move the queen, and knight to d7 now. We have queen to g2, and here comes queen to b6. Now preparing to bring the queen back into the game, and also to push a5, a4. We have rook c to e2, doubling up on the e file now. Now, again, this is pressured. If you're not careful, you might lose it. a5 by black. And here, rook to b2. Now, just in case Anand pushes a4, you can just answer with b4. If captures, you can just capture, attack the queen, you guard the c4 pawn. Everything is nicely protected. So here we have rook back to b8 by Anand, and queen back to d2 by Magnus. We have queen to c7, and now comes queen to d1. We have h6, making some room for the king, and now rook b to e2, again doubling up on the e file, threatening to win the e6 pawn, and queen to b6. So a lot of back and forth, trying to find each other's weaknesses and, try to make the other guy lose as much time as possible, since this is a blitz game. We have h4 by Magnus, and now a4 by Anand. So Magnus brings the rook back to b2. Now a captures on b3, a captures on b3, and queen to a7. Now preparing rook to a6 and rook to a2. We have king to h2 by Magnus, and now rook to a6. So of course Magnus doesn't want to allow rook to a2. We have queen to e2, now guarding the a2 square twice, and now rook a to b6, threatening to just win this guy here. And you don't have to worry about it yet, because queen captures on e6 would be just too strong. So guarding the pawn again with queen d1 or something like that, or knight c1 would just be a waste of time. So here Magnus continues with the g4. Now, like I said, capturing here, allowing the loss of the e6 pawn is just game over for black. After the king moves, you're gonna go captures, and now it's just over. Check, and after the king moves, now queen to f7, and there is no good defense against queen to f5 check, followed by rook to d8, e8. So after g4, we have f captures on g4, f captures on g4, and now queen to c7, lining up the queen with the king here. But now g5 by Magnus. He really wants to open up the files leading to Anand's king. We have h captures on g5, h captures on g5, and now we have e5. A very nice positional pawn sacrifice, which will allow Anand to, get the rook into the game. Also, you have ideas of knight f8, which control both e6 and g6. So here, Magnus captures at f captures on e5, and now rook to e6. Knight to f8 right away might have been better. But okay, rook to e6. Anand wants to get the other rook over here and reclaim his pawn. We have queen to e4 by Magnus. Now you can go queen to d5 to pin the rook. And now comes, just rook b to e8. Now threatening to win back the e5 pawn. Queen to d5, now pinning the rook. And now comes knight to b6. Attacking the queen, pushing the queen back. Here we have queen captures on c5. Magnus grabs another pawn, and here Anand should probably trade queens with queen captures, knight captures, and just grab this guy here. Rook captures, and after knight d3 attacking the rook, now you should go back with rook to e3. You could grab the pawn to equalize in material, but then white's two connected passed pawns might be too much for you to handle. So here it's a really tricky idea. If Anand would enjoy such an endgame against Magnus, probably not. So here Anand played queen to d8. But now, okay, the threat is to just pick up the g5 pawn, but now Magnus defends with rook to g2. It is the strongest move in the position. Problem is, if rook g1, then black has a tricky defense after knight d7, attacks the queen and the e5 pawn. Queen captures on d4, and now queen c7, you will now reclaim your pawn, and Carlsen's king is wide open here. So here, rook to g2 is much better than the other rook coming to g1, because now the same idea doesn't work. If knight d7, you simply don't capture but play queen to d5, and now it's problematic. The rook is pinned, so you're going to have to add another attacker here, but now knight to f4 will just win material. You lose the exchange here. So after rook g2, we have rook to f8 by Anand, and now comes queen to b5 by Magnus. Really a wild position. Both of them very low on time. Magnus much lower on time. And here Anand should just go for rook f5 and rook captures on g5. It is the best he has in the position. But he prefers rook to f3 instead. Now, okay, it adds an attack to the knight here. And here Magnus has to be very careful. The best course of action for Magnus is c5. It's just the best, because here if rook captures on d3, it's not a problem. The queen now guards it, so obviously impossible. So c5, you guard the knight, and also you start advancing your pass pawn. This is the best idea. But Magnus here played knight to c5, which makes sense. You get out of the way, you add additional protection to the b3 pawn, you attack the e6 rook, but this move loses the game for Magnus. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the winning move for Anand while I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, that is just really impressive. It's not an easy move to find. Well, it is, well, now that I've told you, maybe you found it, but all of the complications that lead after that move, really crazy stuff. So for those of you who found it, congratulations. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, rook to h6 check. now it's really ugly. Point is that if the rook is captured, queen h4 just wins the game. King g1, now you pick up the rook with check. King h2, now you pick up the e5 pawn with check. King g1, now queen e3 check, and now you're in the mating net. King h1, rook h3 check, you're gonna go back. You have to block rook h2, now queen e1 check, king g2, and now just rook to g3 is mate. So after this rook h6 check, you will not be able to pick up the rook, most likely why Anand will. If you don't pick up the rook, king to g1, the only move that wins here now after king g1 is d3. Because now, again, you don't care about the rook, you don't care about anything. Queen to d4 check is just too big of a threat. Now if g captures an h6, you're gonna have queen to d4 check, and again, you're just again you have to go to the h file, and again you have queen to h4 check, and you repeat the mating sequence that we've already seen. Only the queen doesn't reach h4 via this diagonal, but via d4 and d4 to h4. So quite similar. But the only thing white has after d3 is not capturing the rook, but rather knight captures here. But it's too ugly to even analyze. I'm just showing it because it's super interesting. Now queen captures. Now you don't have queen d4 check because knight can block. So queen captures on d3 has to be played. But now queen e8 check, rook to f8. You don't have time to allow queen d4. So you have to give up the queen. King captures, and now g captures on h6. G captures, and now e6. And here Magnus would have two rooks against the queen and the knight. He would have to struggle really hard to survive this, but most likely it would end in a win for Anand. So after knight c5, rook to h6 winning for Anand, but Anand plays rook to g6 instead. He wants to go after the g5 pawn, which he should have done 2 moves ago. But, you know, it's blitz. It's really crazy. And here, Magnus has to go knight here. It's really important because it guards the g5 pawn, also the g3 square. But Magnus pushes e6, and again, he gives Anand a winning position. Now, Anand just has to go for the g5 pawn. And after rook captures, it's just winning, whatever you do. For example, if e7, just queen d6, now again, it's game over. King g1, rook captures, queen captures, king captures, and queen to g3 check. King h1, again you're in the mating net. Check, king g1, rook g3 check here, and this will just deliver mate. So after e6, Magnus again blunders mate, but Anand again doesn't find it. First he goes queen to d6 check, king to g1, and now he captures it. But now it's different because now that the queen is on d6, it no longer works. Yes, you are threatening to capture and queen g3 like we've shown, but now knight e4 is just deadly. This is what Carlsen played, and it was in this position on move 51 that Anand resigned the game. Because now the queen is under attack, the rook is under attack, you don't have captures followed by queen g3 as the knight covers the g3 square as well. So there is nothing more to be played here. You could try rook captures, king captures, and queen to f8. You might try this, or queen to f4, because your queen and the rook are under attack. So you might try queen f4, but then you get queen to e8 with check. Queen to f8, now you just trade, captures, rook captures, so you save the rook, but e7, and wherever the rook goes, knight d6, and you control the queening square, it's game over. So after king captures on g2, you might try, instead of queen f4, queen to f8, but now just e7 is very strong. And now you either have to pick this up to lose the rook, or you will get another queen on the board. So yeah, really incredible stuff. After knight to e4, after Magnus gave Vishy 2 chances to punish him, that rook h6 and rook g5, but it's blitz, you know, anything can happen. So in the end, Magnus again emerges victorious. So just so I don't forget, here we prepared some very nice photos courtesy of Leonard Otis. These are the 3 gentlemen that qualified for the finals of the Grand Chess Tour. They will be playing in London in the London Chess Classic, Magnus, Levon, and Ding, and they will be joined by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Anand missed qualifying for the London Chess Classic by less than 1 Grand Chess Tour point. I believe it's 0.8 points. So a tough break for him. I don't know. It's like if he won, I don't know, maybe 1 more game. I don't know how it goes, but he was extremely close to qualifying for London. So a tough break for Anand, and we do have the standings of the Grandchester of the Tata Steel Rapid and Blitz tournament. Here it is. Magnus wins, and not only does Magnus win it with 27 out of 36, this is the world record now for the Grandchester. So far, it's been 26 and a half out of 36, which Magnus achieved in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire Rapid and Blitz tournament. But here he breaks his own record by half a point. And the record before that was also Magnus, I believe, in Leuven in I don't know, 2017 was something 25 or 25 and a half out of 36. So Magnus keeps breaking his records. That's good for him. Then we have as follows: Hikaru Nakamura with 23. Giri and Wesley So are tied with 18 and a half. Then Ding with 18. Nepo with 17 out of 36. Then Vishy with 16 out of 36. Harikrishna and Vidit with 14 out of 36. And 11 did not have the greatest tournament. He was just out of form here with 13 out of 36 in last place. And also I said that I would prepare the live ratings after the tournament, so here it is. So these are the changes in the Rapid. Here we have them. Magnus reclaims his place as the #1 rated player in the world, Rapid rated player in the world. He overtakes Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who was highest rated up until now. And then you have it Nakamura, who Ding lost 28 points, so he fell a few spots. Now he's in number 6. We have 11-1, 6.5 points, and I don't think there are any other big differences. Anand still in the top 20 regarding Rapid, even though he lost around 6 points here. And okay, Wesley had a terrible Rapid event. As you can see in spot 20, he dropped 15 places. He lost 51 Rapid rating points. So those are the changes in the Rapid section. These are from 2700 Chess. They always really quickly upload, all of the differences. So that's regarding Rapid, and this is regarding Blitz. There you have it. Nakamura still the highest rated Blitz player in the world. Magnus won 36 points in the Blitz section, but Nakamura also won 14, so he still is the highest rated. So Nakamura first, Carlsen second. Karyakin is still third highest rated in the world. You can see that Ding lost 10 points, so he dropped 2 spots. Nepo lost 4 points. Wesley, he lost 51 points in Rapid, but he won 55 points in Blitz, so he climbs up to spot 6. And we can see Anand lost 6 points in Blitz as well, but he's still 11, which is incredible. Anand, pushing 50. He's the basically in the top 10 Blitz players in the world, but not all that unbelievable. He was known as the Lightning Kid at one point. Giri winning 30 Blitz points. Laquang Liam winning 88 points, but not in this event. And Vidit also improved. He won 12.4 points. He climbed up to 2 places, so now he's also in the top 20 Blitz players in the world. So that's pretty much it, what we prepared for this tournament and the game. So basically it was a short Carlsen saga, but with such incredible scores in both Rapid and Blitz, there was no other choice but to show his games. So tomorrow we're gonna pick up on all the other games that we didn't show, as I'm sure there were some other very nice games. A lot of you have requested, suggested some games, so we're gonna cover those tomorrow as much as we can before we continue in doing something else. So once again, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it and this short coverage of this tournament. I would like to thank Stephen Green again and David Compton for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon with a few more games from this event, not by Magnus, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.